Because you are what you eat. From breakfast to your midnight snack. Choose something certified organic, local, or exotic. From fresh to frozen, food for life. Everything for your health. The Kootenay Co-op, serving the people of Nelson and area for over 20 years. Shop at the Co-op, where you're always welcome.
So when I have had conversations with people all over the country about the Co-op and Nelson and our food culture here, people are always utterly perplexed.
There was no other grocery store owned by its customers of that scale that was as focused on community and focused on buying guidelines and product standards. Nothing else was like it in the country.
When you walk into the store, you really get the sense that the staff who work here really want to be here. And that really creates this beautiful, unique shopping experience that makes you just kind of want to hang out a little longer. It really makes groceries seem like not such a chore anymore.
Ever since I've been involved with the Co-op, people from large cities show up and say, how do you guys do this? We don't have anything like this in our community. And I think that it has a lot to do with the history of this place and the peoples of this place that goes back to time immemorial. There's so many different peoples that came here because it was a special place, that there was a lot happening here that enabled the support of their lifeways and their cultures and languages and spirituality to flourish. And so, I think that's an indication of just how special it is.
The food co-op movement started back in probably the late 60s. You talk about hope, right? Like, people really then had like this vision of this beautiful new world, right? There's so much great spirit and cooperation. It was just a fulfilling thing to be a part of, right?
When I started in the 1990s, we were revolutionary for carrying kettle chips, and rice milk. And of course, you can find that everywhere. You can find a freaking pharmacy these days. But back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, they were still niche products.
We couldn't get good food. We couldn't get good, healthy food in the local stores. It just was not available. And so we actually ended up starting a warehouse in Vancouver.
And people would go there, they would get the orders of what people needed to eat, and then they would divvy up this massive order, and then everybody would return back with their collection of like yeast flakes and brown rice and lentils and all the essentials of a good, healthy diet.
We were all kind of winging it really up until now, except for that warehouse, which was incredible. I don't know how we pulled that off. It's really nice to see the evolution of it over the years.
So that's when my understanding is the Co-op actually started to formalize and have staff.
The Kootenay Co-op is a member-owned food cooperative in Nelson, BC. We have over 17,000 members, which is a pretty impressive feat considering the town itself has only 11,000 people. And that really goes to show how much support we get from the communities that surround Nelson and all the members who live there. We really focus on natural and organic products, and we really lean into local products and building strong relationships with our local suppliers, our farmers, our artisans, and food producers within our region.
Yeah, so I often describe like the food system or food supply chain, which is a more familiar term now, as a series of bottlenecks. And so if you imagine an hourglass, but with multiple bottlenecks in the hourglass, the top of the hourglass are the farmers. So 500 million farmers on the planet producing food. And for all of that food to get down to the bottom, which is all of us eaters in our stomachs, goes through these series of bottlenecks. And so it starts with the agricultural commodity traders, which are generally only a handful of companies that dominate that part of the food supply chain. And from there, it moves into food processors, food manufacturers, food distributors, and then the final point, the one that we as eaters converge with, is the retailer, is the grocery store. And so generally, as more and more Canadians are now becoming aware, there are a handful of companies that dominate Canada's grocery market, and sometimes in smaller communities, it's anywhere from 1 to 3 that dominate that market. What's so important is that there be alternatives to help open up that bottleneck so more food and more diversity can flow through. And in doing so, we are influencing the entire food supply chain upstream. I often refer to the grocers as gatekeepers because they really are determining which foods make it to market and which don't. And in doing so, influence the entirety of the food system upstream, from farm all the way down to the grocery store and eventually to us. So a co-op, any independent grocer, has this capacity to change the food system by becoming an alternative to the dominant options that are available.
I think the co-op has been profoundly instrumental in supporting farmers here and food producers. I think that like the whole sort of helping build people's understanding of how to do a business. It used to be back in the early 90s, like a farmer would just show up at the dock with a box of stuff and say, hey, can you take it? And, back in those days when we weren't quite so insanely busy, we could and we did do things like that. And so we've really built that knowledge base that has enabled people to build robust businesses. And I think as a result, we probably have some pretty persistent and durable food businesses here. And I've seen many of them now in the 30 some odd years I've been involved, have succession that was successful. So next generation, like it's so fabulous to see that we've enabled these businesses to thrive to that degree that they are durable from generation to generation.
So in the same way that the grocers influence what's happening upstream in the food supply chain by determining what foods make it to market and which don't, they're also determining, of course, what's available to us. And I remember in my early years moving to Nelson and learning about the food system here and learning about what challenged particularly the local farmers and food manufacturers that were here was that they had limited access to this primary point where most of us are accessing food, which is the grocery store. So in a place like Nelson, there are 4 large grocers. And at that time, we're now talking almost 20 years ago now, it was impossible, next to impossible, to get a local product into those stores. And the joke around the table was always that these local producers here and food manufacturers, in order to get their food into some of those stores, if they could, they would be required to send that product to a distribution center either in Calgary or Vancouver, where it could then come back to Nelson. So that's where we were 20 years ago. And so, the co-op at the time was really revolutionary in that it was able to open its doors to these food suppliers, many of whom are now able to get onto the shelves of the other grocers here because the marketplace has changed. More and more people are wanting those products. More and more of these businesses now see value. But that really just goes to show you the power of that point within the food supply chain to really control not just the global food system, but our local food systems too.
I think what makes the co-op different from other stores is we've never lost the plot on our values base. And in the 90s, I worked at the co-op on staff from 1991 to 2000, and we just kept growing so rapidly. We were growing in double digits, particularly the latter part of the 90s. And we used to get a lot of grief that we were getting too big and we were losing our values and our priorities and stuff like that. And we never sought growth for growth's sake. I don't think ever in my involvement with the co-op, it was ever part of our strategic goal was to keep growing. It was simply that what we had to offer was really important.
this is a very different business, this is a very different grocery store than any other. And that has nothing to necessarily do with it being a co-op, but it certainly has to do with it being an independent, locally owned store where the people who work in the store also live here in the community, where the people who are leading the store, the CEO is also in the store. And it's for that reason that I think there's a tendency for the decisions that are being made in the store to be based on care rather than profit.
The co-op started because there was a need to be met in the community, access to good, healthy food. And if I was to draw a through line between what connects the co-op of 1975 to the co-op of 2025, I would say that's what would connect us. It was always about being here for the community and listening to what the community needed. And I think if we can continue to have that be our guiding principle and have that be our reason for being, we will continue to meet the needs of our community with so much more heart and intention than anything we would ever be able to offer if we just showed up for profit and profit only.
It's too easy to get seduced into just thinking about your own wants and needs and having a competitive sort of agenda. To me, when I think about the years I've been involved in the co-op and the 15 years preceding my arrival, and then even before that, there's such a rich, rich tapestry. There's just this incredible community of people who've contributed in one way or another to what this co-op is and how it will continue to evolve and be responsive to the moment, to the community, but always grounded in a foundational value of believing that we are a community together.
Whether by design or not, consumers, citizens, I think have been trained to become passive citizens within the economy. And by passive, I mean we are at the recipient end of supply chains. And we really don't see ourselves as having much agency beyond what we purchase. And when we spend money at the food co-op, we are investing in someone or something. And I had this invitation from a group for me to tell a story about how money circulates through the community when we shop at a food co-op. And I told the story of one particular supplier to our co-op. And before I told that story, I went and approached that supplier and I asked her where she spends her money in Nelson. And she gave me a list of all the places she spends money. Oso Negro Coffee, Kurama Sushi, Vince DeVito's shoe store, and Vitality Wellness Clinic. These were all places where her money goes. And so I'm now able, knowing that, to recognize that when I buy her products at the co-op, a portion of what I'm spending on, say, that $5 product is going into her pocket. And then that money is then circulating to Oso Negro, which is owned by a business by people I know, that employs people I know behind the counter, that goes to Kurama Sushi, which is a restaurant that I want to keep going to. And some of that money also, at the time, was going to Vitality Wellness Clinic, where my wife was working. And so it was in that moment I recognized that when I'm buying this product, a portion of this $5 is not only supporting all of the people in the community who I know, all of my friends, but some of that is even coming right back into my own family through the wages that my wife was receiving at that business. And so this is the power of what we buy as not being an expense. It is absolutely an investment into each other, into our community. It's another form of what I call social solidarity, where we are able to support one another through what we buy. And so there is this idea that democracy and economics are two separate things. This is one way that they come together. And in coming together in that way, we're also supporting community. It's this amazing ecosystem of all of these things that are so important to us coming together under one roof, which has been the Kootenay Co-op.
I remember back in the 90s we were regarded as just this weird hippie thing at the end of Baker Street, you know? From one end to the other of Baker Street, we're just this weird group of hippies who ate bizarre foods. And it took us a while to gain the respect, I think, of both the political community here, the political leadership, but also the business community, that we were actually an important partner in what happens within this region.
It's easy to take for granted something that's been here for 50 years. And I think we need to continue to do our part to remind people that this is so much more than just a grocery store. It really is an intersection of community. And when I think about all of the staff who have worked here and continue to work here, and I think about all the suppliers, and I think about all of the members who come through here on any given day, it is an incredible reminder of just how powerful this place is in creating that community, in being a hub for our local food system.
I reflect on the very common statement you might see at rallies and protests, which is, this is what democracy looks like. And that came up for me recently in thinking of the role of co-ops as democratic institutions. And it occurred to me that everything that we do in every moment as a member owner or as a member of the staff or as a board carries with it that same mantra. This is what democracy looks like. So walking into the co-op through those doors, those sliding doors, I'd invite all members and everyone in the community to repeat that. This is what democracy looks like. And to look over at the staff, at the cash, or behind in the kitchen, and to look over and say, this is what democracy looks like. The choice that the co-op makes to purchase a fairly traded product or an organic product, to consider the human rights and welfare of workers in other countries around the world, this is what democracy looks like. To care for the people who are in our community, whether it's people who have less access to food, or whether it's the local suppliers to the business, this is what democracy looks like. And all of the ways that the co-op engages in the community is a form of democracy, because at the end of the day, it is the people of this community that own this business, that steward this business, that started this business 50 years ago to be what it is today. And it has only ever been owned and stewarded by the people.
So if there's anybody out there who's like, hey, I want to start a food co-op, just recognize that what you're looking at is 50 years of intentional work, but it's so worth it. And I think it's worth it because food co-ops are an incredible connection of community and really being a place where you can drive change in your own backyard.
But always grounded in a foundational value of believing that we are a community together, that we will thrive better when we care about each other and about our food systems and how we're all nourished spiritually, nutritionally, culturally. There's so much beauty there, and we are at a time when so many people are struggling with trying to figure out where they belong and how they can feel happy and fulfilled in their lives. And the co-op just continues to provide an avenue and a model of how to be better together and why. And I think that's so important. I'm gonna cry.